So I raised my level up every day. And in turn, it raised everybody else's level up. And so it was just that commitment that I had. And I took that and brought that same work ethic into the NFL.
Greetings and welcome to HOF's The Podcast, where greatness is the standard. I'm C. Lamont Smith, your host today. We have the honor and the privilege today of having a very special guest. He is a 6-time Pro Bowler. He was the 1996 NFL Comeback Player of the Year and the 2002 NFL Man of the Year. We'd like to welcome today the one and only Jerome "The Bus" Bettis.
Jerome, how are you today, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. What brings you to Pittsburgh today?
I'm the celebrity MC for the Mel Blount Celebrity Roast. Mel Blount every year roasts a former player of the team, and this year he's roasting Troy Polamalu, and so I'm MCing the affair. So it should be fun.
Seeing that's another tool in your toolbox.
Yeah, I've expanded through the years. Being asked to do some things. I mean, it's not one thing. It's not something I particularly enjoy, but it was Troy. He's a dear friend, and Mel is a dear friend. He asked me to do it. There's no way I was going to let Mel down or let Troy down. So I'm here.
Well, full transparency to our audience, I have had a 30-year relationship with Jerome. I served as his attorney, his agent, his confidant, his friend over those years. So as we get into this, you may hear a few stories, and he may reference Lamont or me, and don't want you to be confused out there in the audience about what is going on.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh, let's start. We're talking about, we're sitting here with Three Rivers in the background. What does Pittsburgh mean to you?
Pittsburgh for me means where I found a home. Coming to Pittsburgh, I got traded here on draft day. Didn't know really what to expect. Had a very lackluster experience with the Rams, coming here. So a lot of ups and downs. Didn't really know what to expect. Didn't know about the franchise. But I did know that they were really good. And it turned out to be kind of a love affair in terms of the city, the team. They embraced me. I mean, so when I think about Pittsburgh, I think about coming home. To a degree. So every time I come to Pittsburgh, it's a warm feeling because of the experience I had, but also the fans and the people welcoming me and that warmth that I was able to receive. In 90s, football was about running the football, and the Pittsburgh style was running the football and playing great defense behind it. So as a result, I was a perfect fit. They love big backs. Everything kind of came all at once. They had just lost to the Super Bowl, so they had a really talented football team, and then I was just kind of put in and allowed to do my thing, and like you said, it blew up. The nickname, the bus came, and I think it added more to everything, and then year after year we had that type of success. So yeah, my career went to kind of hyperspeed when I came to Pittsburgh. It was a good career, but it became a great career after coming to Pittsburgh.
You mentioned earlier that you got the nickname "the Bus" when you came here. Tell our audience how
that happened.
Yeah.
Well, the nickname actually started when I was at Notre Dame, and the student body, someone in the student body newspaper wrote an article and it said it reminded them of a bus, and I don't remember kind of why he said, but there was a chant in the stadium when I would run. They would say, "Nobody stops the bus." and the student section would be yelling at it. So it was a pretty cool thing. When I left and went to the Rams, they disappeared. And so when I got traded back to Pittsburgh, I came back and we were playing a preseason game in Green Bay. The coach that was at Wisconsin, linebackers coach that was at Wisconsin, his name was Jay Hayes. He was the linebackers coach at Notre Dame when I was there. And he used to always say before he would get, "Hey, Bussy, how much you weighing today?" And I'm like, "Oh, I weigh 225. I was 250 pounds, fullback, but I always kind of felt quick and light. And so we would joke. So when he set the stage, I'm coming to play the Green Bay Packers preseason. He's at the University of Wisconsin now. He has a brother, Jonathan Hayes, who was a tight end for the Steelers. So he comes and brings his kids to see their uncle, right, his brother. And when he walks into the hotel, he sees me and he says, "Bussy, what the hell are you doing?" And Mike Hillgrove and Myron Cope were right over there and heard him, Bill Hillgrove. And Bill hears it and says, "Oh, his nickname is the Bus, right? It's Bus, whatever." So in the game, Myron Cope, with his distinctive voice, "He kind of looks like a bus, that bus." And then that was it. It took off, and it was my first year in preseason is when that Bus moniker kind of came and stuck. And obviously we wore black and yellow, and it was school bus colors, right. So it was an automatic fit.
I read in your book where you talked about, and obviously we've talked about it before, this principal position that you had taken that, hey, if I have to be here, I'm going to retire. And one of my questions for you would have been, do you think you would have gone all the way with that and given up football at that point? And I guess hearing you today, you're saying, yes.
Yes, because I wasn't in love with football yet. So the love affair was building, was growing. But I had only played, 6 years. So it wasn't like I was like just, football had been my life. I was a bowler. I bowled longer than I had bowled for 8 years. At that point, I was one of the best, at my age group in the country. So I was like in love with bowling more than I was with football at that particular time. So it wasn't something I was going to say, you know what, I love it. I didn't. I was growing into the love affair, and coming to Pittsburgh actually kind of built and grew that love, because then it became fun again, right? Going through what I went through and then coming back and it's a refreshing philosophy. We're going to run the ball. You're our guy. Everybody is going to get behind you, and we're going to go as you go. That, energized me and charged me, and that's when the love affair came, to the point where I ate, slipped, and drank football. It was all about football.
Tell us about your childhood, how you grew up, some of the challenges of growing up in inner city Detroit.
So it was a tough upbringing. I was fortunate enough. Mom and Dad was there in the home, supporting me. But like any inner city situation, it was tough. Drugs was prevalent. And so that was, an aspect that you had to maneuver and manage through, selling drugs, your friends selling drugs, that was just there, right? And so you had to be careful not to get caught in that trap. And so that's why they call it the trap, because it's, you can get caught very easily in that world, because that's what you're seeing every single day when you walk out your front door. So you have to be very careful. I was fortunate enough to have a high school football coach who cared enough to come to my house. I'll never forget. He came to the house.
Who was that?
Coach Dozier, Robert Dozier. He says, Miss Bettis, your son is good enough to go to college and he could possibly play in the NFL. He is that good. I know, I've seen him. He had Pepper Johnson, who played for the New York Giants. And so he was saying that to my mom, and I'm a junior in high school, but he didn't want me to go down the wrong path. He saw me hanging with the wrong guys and doing some bad stuff, and he wanted to kind of to shut it down. So he came to the house, and I'll never forget it, and told my mom that. And him telling my mom that, I'm listening, and I'm thinking to myself, he believes in me that much for him to come here and tell my mom, listen. Obviously, I got in trouble and all that, but it was the fact that he was willing to do that, right? He said, no, I'm coming to the house. You can be special. And that's the first time I kind of really thought that, okay, let me give this the try that it deserves, because I was playing football. I said, you know what? I'm going to get committed to this. And then that's kind of when everything really took off, because I was, lock, stock, barrel into football. And the only reason I played football, let me back up a little bit. The only reason I played football was I wanted to get a college scholarship, because I have an older brother, older sister, and mom and dad was struggling to get them in school. So I knew it was no money for them. So I'm the last one. It's definitely not going to be any money for me, right? If it's anything like school clothes shopping, I'll get nothing. So I was like, I got to find a way to get to college.
Right.
And so that was the impetus for me to want to play football, was just to get a college scholarship, right? And when he said all of that, I'm like, oh man, it's possible, right? And that was the first moment. And the second moment, when it all became crystal clear to me, was my junior year, going into my senior year. And we went to the Reggie McKenzie football camp. And Reggie McKenzie was a all-pro offensive lineman, played for the Buffalo Bills, blocked for O.J. Simpson in the electric company, right? And he was from Detroit area, Highland Park, inside Detroit. And he gave this free football camp for all the kids. And Pepper Johnson was running it. Pepper was there, Chris Carter. He had all these pros, Keith Byers, they were all there, right? And I'm looking at it like, these guys play in the NFL right now, right? And they all, high level, Pepper just won the Super Bowl. I was like, man, this is for real. And Pep went to the same high school I went to. So I'm looking at it like, these guys from the same place I'm from, if they can do it, I can do it. They put their pants on just like I do. And that's when the light bulb hit me to say, man, it's possible. And if you see that it's possible, you know that you have a chance to achieve it. And that was my eyes seeing the possibility. I'll never forget, Pep, he had his Jaguar coming. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, that's the fruits of his labor, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm watching. You got me convinced now. And Reggie McKenzie, I'll never forget, he would always say, who's going to be the next one? Who's going to be the next one? And I'll walk right up to him and said, Reggie, I'm going to be the next one. And he was like, all right, kid, I didn't mean it literally. You know what I'm saying? He gave me a look like, all right, whatever, man, get up back in line, right? And so, but I was hooked. And that was the second moment that really catapulted me to want to go out and give football a chance.
You know what's so important about that? That shows the importance of role models, okay? So many kids today can't achieve it because they can't see it. They don't believe it's obtainable, okay? And programs like the Reggie McKenzie Foundation have this give kids an opportunity to say, hey, that could be me. I could do that out there. So that's such an important.
Yeah, and the one thing I get from that is, and that's why I started my foundation years ago, and it's not about a handout, it's about a hand up. And that's what they provided me. They provided me a hand up to say, come here, come with us. And to be able to be with those guys, and it was interesting because that week, half the week I was with Pepper at linebacker, and half the week I was with Keith Byers at fullback. So I was with both of these guys, and they're fighting over me. Hey, no, he's a linebacker. No, he's a full. And so it was just like they were helping to raise me, and I've never ever forgotten. I just went down to Keith Byers' golf tournament a month ago. You know what I mean? And he called me in 2 days. I'm there, right? Because I appreciated what they did for me. You know, they may not know. They may, it was nothing. Here I was, a snot-nosed kid, and they are just taking me in, working with me, believing in me, right? And I'm like, all right, I got it. And so I'll never forget that experience because that's what crafted me into wanting to be great, right? That's the beginning of that process where I saw these guys, right? I saw NFL greats, and I'm saying to myself, no, I want to be that. I want to be that.
So you go from inner city Detroit,
yeah,
to Notre Dame.
Culture shock.
Yeah. South Bend, Indiana, right. In South Bend, Indiana.
Yes. PWI, predominantly white institution.
Right. What were the challenges?
Let me backtrack. My high school, McKenzie High School, had 4,000 kids. 3,998 was black kids. I think we had 2 Asian kids, right? That's it. 3,998 black kids, right? So I did not know how to interact with, white kids or white people outside of the people at the grocery store, the people you interact with, your teachers at school. Outside of that, there was no, back and forth, no socialization. So for me to go there now, I got a white roommate, and it's like, oh my goodness, how do I negotiate this? And so he was a long distance runner, right? Funny story. And I was like, so I was still rough around the edges. I was not polished by any means. My freshman year, I was still rough. Big old leather jacket, gold chain, that kind of thing. So I'm at school, and he's a long distance runner. And we in this small little room together, right? Got lofts where we got, we build these things, lofts where the beds are up, and our desks and stuff are underneath the bed. But literally about this much room for me and that much room for him, right? And I'll never forget, he used to run, and he would come back from a run, and he would put his underwear on a nail, right? On the thing, right? Dry out, right? And I'm like, what is that? How nasty is that, right? I'm thinking to myself. And so I thought one time, okay, right. It became like he was doing it to everything. And I'm thinking to myself, do I say something to him? But if I say something to him and he says the wrong thing, I'm going to smash him. I'm thinking, because he's a little guy, yeah, right? And I'm thinking, I'm going to hurt this kid. I'm going to get kicked out of school. That's all I kept thinking. He going to say something stupid, right? I'm going to slap him or smack him or something, right? And then I'm going to get kicked out. Right? And so I was like scared. Like, he kept doing it every day. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. Right? That is the nastiest thing in the world. Well, my mom and dad was coming up for a game. And so I knew I gotta have this conversation with him because I can't have my mom and dad come in the room and he got his drawers and stuff hanging out. I said, listen, we gotta figure something out. We gotta live in here together. We gotta respect each other. Our boundaries. I said the underwear, they gotta go, man. That just doesn't work for me. He said, oh, no problem, no problem. And I was just so relieved because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get kicked out of school. That's all I kept thinking. I don't want to go back. And I kept telling myself, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. And so that was really what pushed me to change and become more polished and to speak and not use intimidation and that kind of thing. And so that was that first moment of how do you respond? But, it was a culture shock to go from inner city Detroit and go to a college campus that was predominantly white and had very few African Americans. It was a challenge.
Now, you had some challenges on the football field while you were at Notre Dame. There was a occasion where Coach Holtz decides that you guys have a potential for a good team with the upcoming season. He calls out a certain player during practice. Tell us about that.
It's going into my sophomore year. We're in the preseason. We're getting ready to start, and we go to practice. And right before, the week before, the publication that follows Notre Dame, it's called Irish Illustrated or whatever. They put me on the cover of the magazine, right? So they spritzed me up and got me looking mean, right, with the black under my eye black. And so it's like a tough, menacing picture. And I'll never forget, it said the Sultan of Six, because I wore number 6. It said the Sultan of Six. And so it was, I never forget, I was like, ooh, I made it, baby. All right, I'm on the cover. I'm like trying to find I'm going to all the different buildings, stealing all the books, and sending them to all my peoples, right? So we go to practice, and Coach says, he comes up, we got a guy, he's going to cost us a national championship. We're going to lose. He thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, who is that? Who's going to cost me a national championship on my year, right? Right. What? He was like, Jerome Bettis, would you stand up? And I was like, and he was like, but this is your football team. You deal with them. And I'm like, what does that mean? You deal with them. And so I had the most difficult practice I've ever had in my career. Everybody was taking shots at me. The walk-ons, everybody was giving me a licks, right? So, and then after the practice was over, I'm walking back and I'm like a leper and nobody's around me. I'm walking by myself, right? And he pulls up on his golf cart. He says, how was practice? And I'm like, what? He says, I was just trying to motivate you, right? And I was like, what? But what he did was, through that public embarrassment, when I practiced that day, because everybody was taking shots, I was 100 miles an hour, full speed, every play. And from that moment, my work ethic, it changed. And I became a different football player after that day because I took that and that's what I decided to do every single practice. So I raised my level up every day. And in turn, it raised everybody else's level up. And so it was just that commitment that I had. And I took that and brought that same work ethic into the NFL. And so all these small little things help build the character and develop the philosophies that I then took forward. And so I used to run 40 yards down the field every play when I got to the NFL, right? And they thought I was crazy. But my thing was, I'm training myself to do this in the game. So how do you train yourself to do it? You got to do it in practice, right? And so, and nobody else would do it. But then after I started doing relentlessly, next thing you know, you see other guys, other running backs. Then you see other wide receivers. Then you see the defensive guys running. And now, next thing you know, it's contagious. Everybody's doing it. And then it raised the level of our team. And so, that moment was central to who I became as a football player. So I got a lot of love, a lot of respect for Coach Holtz for that. The embarrassment, it paid off.
So our goal and our core exploration on this journey that we want to go through is what makes the great great and what are the pitfalls. So you talked about some of your physical challenges. You just talked about what you had to learn how to do as a running back. But you also were drafted to the Los Angeles Rams. You're into the league. Lots of temptation in the city of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we see with athletes today is that, they'll have the physical skills, but sometimes they're not equipped with what's necessary to navigate with what comes with being a professional athlete in these major cities, becoming celebrities or quasi-celebrities. How did you navigate that in Los Angeles your first couple of years?
So a great story. When I was going to Notre Dame, I'll never forget my dad, when they were dropping me off and they were leaving, he kind of pulled me to the side. He says, "Son, I don't have much to give you, but I got a good name." And he said, "Don't screw it up," right? And so that resonated with me so much because when I was at Notre Dame, I was always scared. Don't screw up, can't go back, don't mess up, right? This is your opportunity, don't blow it, right? So when I got to the NFL, it kind of grew. It was like even more, don't do nothing stupid, don't mess it up, don't mess up, don't make your mom and dad feel the pain of you doing something stupid, right? And disrespecting his name, right? So that was always in the back of my mind. So I'm always thinking, we're not doing that. We ain't gonna do that, right? We're not gonna do that. And so I had that moral compass because of what my dad told me when I was going to Notre Dame. And so that created that kind of fear of making that mistake or doing that thing that was just stupid. I mean, you knew better, right? So, but of course, I mean, I was young. I still made a ton of mistakes, but I knew what type of mistake not to make, right? And so that was because my dad, he made a profound impact on me when I went to Notre Dame, and it's always in the back of my head. And to this day, it's in the back of my head. Don't do nothing stupid. Don't do nothing stupid.
Well, in the interest of time, I've got a few rapid fires on you.
Yep.
Best player you ever played against?
Reggie White.
Hardest hit you ever took?
From my mother.
Ooh. You've had so many significant achievements, okay? You won a Super Bowl, you're in the NFL Hall of Fame. If you had to take one off the table and take one over the other, what would it be?
Winning the Super Bowl.
What advice, you got a son right now that's a pretty good football player. What advice do you give him in terms of trying to become great?
I tell him that you got to love it. You got to love it first. Because if you're not in love with it, you'll never be great.
Thank you for joining us with HOF's Hall of Famers. That was a great conversation that we had with the bus tonight. We look forward to seeing you in our next episode.